Yo, what's up guys? Jivan back with another video. Today's video is just going to be a full guide for how to survive in early game. I'm going to be ranking every single possible drop spot on the map based on difficulty. Then I'll give you advice on how your playstyle should be looking in early game, the key skills that you need to survive, and then lastly I'll be showing you some examples. Before we get into this video, please consider using code JivanTV in the item shop, or at least make sure you're using somebody's code because it helps us creators out a bunch. Without further ado, let's get into this video. So first part of this tutorial is, let's rank all the drop spots on the map. We're going to start off with the level 1 drop spots. Level 1 drop spots are outskirt spots on the map. This means that they are not at named locations. Any named location is going to be tough to survive, but there's more non-named locations than named locations. So I'm going to show you every single spot on the map that you could use as a level 1 drop spot. Before you skip to the next part of the video, just know level 1 drop spots are so crucial to have in your inventory. Because if you're having a bad day, you're going to want to switch it up and go somewhere safer to build some more confidence. They're also really good to have for a tournament if you're trying to play safely and get those placement points. Let's take a look at them. First off, we have anywhere back behind Misty Meadows here. Notice how there's so many different clusters of chest spawns back here. Something you can do at a place like this where there's lots of different chest spawns is pull out your glider super early, that way you can see if there's any other players landing around you. If you see someone going nearby, just loot the opposite direction so that you're not running into them. But if you get really good loot in like your first 2 chests, maybe push them. Next we got over here behind Slurpee, same idea applies. Any outskirt spot where there's multiple sets of chest spawns, you can just aim your glider high and pull to wherever there aren't opponents. Or if you have a favorite spot, just head right to that favorite spot of yours. Nice thing back here, there's lots of fishing. We're going to go through them faster now, but just notice how many different spots there are around the map like this. These are some of my favorite spots to land at because you can get really good loot without having to worry about 50-50ing off spawn or getting bad loot in your first fight. Landing spots like these lead to the highest survival rates because you don't have to take 50-50s, you don't have to worry about RNG too much. RNG is basically just the amount of luck you have. And lastly, you can push into named locations from these spots and catch a lot of people fighting and get free third-party opportunities. So now that you've seen a lot of level 1 drop spots, let's move on to level 2 drop spots. Level 2 drop spots are also non-named locations, but these are going to be the ones that feel like named locations just on a smaller level. These spots you'll probably be contested by a few players, but I'm going to go through each of them just like I did for the level 1 drop spots. I might have missed some, but what I encourage you to do, pick one of each of these level drop spots and learn them. I recommend you go to Fortnite.gg, the website. That way you can look at everything there, the NPCs, the henchman chests, vending machines, everything, and build a loot path around each of these spots. So level 2 drop spots are going to include places like the Shark, places like the Orchard, Weather Station, also Stealthy Stronghold, just all the non-named locations that have more loot than usual. And I'd also include all those new henchman spots. Main reason why they're level 2, they may not have as much loot as some of these other spots, but the henchmen just make it kind of hard to survive there with the music blasting and all that, and they're also pretty hot right now because they're new in the game and they have the launch pads for rotation out of there. So those spots are pretty popping at the moment. So those are level 1 and 2 drop spots, and then level 3, 4, 5, those are just going to be different POIs. Some of the easier POIs are going to be smaller ones such as Holly. These are mainly easier because of the fact that they may not have like vending machines or NPCs. The poppin' ones are going to be the spots like Corny Complex that have like mythic guns, and Steamy Stacks with the vending machines, and Sweaty Sands or whatever it's called now, Believer Beach. Those are all much more poppin' and much harder to survive at simply because of the features they have within those spots. Again, I recommend you go into that website, Fortnite.gg, checking everything out at the different locations, and then picking one drop spot from each difficulty. That way you have different levels that you can go to. It may take time to master one of each, but if you go there enough, you'll get used to it. For example, I used to try to land at Steamy and I was terrible there, but now I know the spot so well that I can survive there almost every single time. So in this point of the video, we're going to go over the playstyle that you should be taking in early game to survive the most often. So let's start off with a level 1 drop spot. Main thing to up your chances of survival is don't 50-50 a chest. If they get the gun, your game is over. When I'm landing at a spot like this, I always try to scan all of the loot that I can see while flying in. That way I can pick the best gun to land on, and maybe I'll get good enough loot just from doing that to push them before they can get kitted up. But if it's a different situation like here, I just try to get a shotgun and a little bit of shield before pushing in. Sometimes you won't have that luxury, but in this situation I did, and I was able to clean up the fight really easily because of that. So that's how I go about surviving a level 1 drop spot, just simply by knowing how to drop at that spot, knowing how to look for the loot. I'm able to win it pretty much every single time. From here, I usually just push into Corny Complex and try to third party all those fights, or loot up the stuff around me if I don't have good enough loot yet. Now for level 2 and 3 drop spots, this is the general playstyle you should approach it with. You should try to learn the spots so that you know where to land for the best loot possible. Because you're going to be contested by a couple people at these spots, you want to try to get the best loot as quick as possible by landing on a vending machine or a henchman chest that always spawns. Doing stuff like that can put you at an advantage in the drop spot. Like last season I always landed on the bunker chests. They'd be a little bit more contested than other spots, but if you could get that chest, you would be way more kitted than everyone around you. So you can try landing at a henchman chest at those certain spots, or a vending machine, or just pick a building that you're really comfortable with and you know how to fight at, and just repetition is going to build you success. By landing at the same spot in the named location over and over again, you'll know how to loot around that, and you'll know how to fight in those buildings. Other things you should be doing to up your survival rate is make sure you're scanning the area around you, at least the closest 2 buildings, to see if there's people there. For example, if I land at Holly Hedges at a certain building, I want to scan the buildings around me. That way, if I get bad loot at my building, I know where I can rotate to get more loot. And if I get good loot at my building, I'll know where people are around me so that I can push them fast before they're able to get their loot up. If you can start out the game strong by knowing where your opponents are landing, that'll put you at a major advantage, and they might not have had the same awareness off spawn, so that puts you at the advantage. Other things to note, you should be farming everything in your building. You gotta get your mats up because mats are the most limited resource off spawn. Make sure that you know how many mats exactly you have before going into your fight. If you only have 100 mats, you're gonna need to conserve those builds like crazy. And you might even need to be farming during your fight, playing box to box and playing safe while building up your materials. If there's ever a dull point in a fight where neither of you are making a move, be sure you're at least farming some mats. That way you're putting yourself at a little more of an advantage during that dull point in the fight. Biggest thing in off-spawn fights, you need to have patience. Some people just make impulse pushes and put themselves in bad positioning, but if you play slow and really calculated, you can win almost every single time off spawn. What this means is when you're in your fights, make sure you're paying attention to where third parties could be coming from, paying attention to your builds, playing angles with structures that are at your named location. It's basically like one big box fight. You gotta make sure you're setting up really good right-hand peeks, keeping track of your mats, keeping track of your ammo count, and all that stuff. The more calculated players are the ones that win off spawn. You may be tempted to build fight your opponents off spawn, and I get that feeling too sometimes, but we just gotta remember that off spawn fights are all about patience. If you start to build fight somebody, you're both gonna run out of mats in a second. A third party approaches, you're both dead, you know what I mean? Let's take a look at a quick example of how you should be playing off spawn. Hey, cut the dub, let's go. Anyways, this game I go Holly, hometown Holly, and I get a pump off rip and I hear somebody land above me. So I'm trying to loot fast and loot up to his level. I realize though he might be camping an angle up there waiting for me to walk up the stairs, so I'm careful when going up the stairs. I see him holding an angle, so I set up an angle myself, get a free chip damage on him. At that point he's on the run, and I just carefully chase him down, making sure that he's not holding any other angles. And I was able to finish that up easily. That's what I mean by using structure. I used the stairs for a peek there. We don't have too many mats, so make use of anything you can around you. Know your environment. So after that, I assumed I was pretty kitted compared to my opponents that also landed at Holly. So I started scouting around trying to see people, but I don't see nobody, so I go and loot this building. As soon as I got minis, I knew I was extra kitted, so I start looking around again. I see somebody and get a health advantage. So I noted that I had pretty decent mats here, so I built up to get high ground advantage. If you have more than 300 mats, you can build fight a little bit, just be sure that you're keeping track of your mats. I'm not doing any fancy retakes, not wasting too many mats, and I won that pretty easily as well. And then here, I make a really IQ play. Because I know Holly so well, I know that people are probably going to break through these bushes and not expect anyone to be behind them. And so I'm able to get the freest kill on this guy because of that. And then just like that, Holly is mine. It's stuff like that, man. Using your environment to your advantage and your knowledge of the POI. This comes with experience and comes with a lot of practice at one spot. So if you don't have a spot down like this, I definitely recommend just practicing at one place over and over again until you can get it down. But again, if you're practicing at a named location, spawn, make sure you have a backup low-key spot. That way if you get frustrated, you can go somewhere easy to build confidence again before trying at a POI again. So that's basically everything you need to survive off spawn. If you still struggle a lot after this video, I definitely recommend just working on your fighting. Keep practicing one drop spot at a time. Start with a level 1, then level 2, and then work your way up to level 3. And if you still struggle, you might want to practice a lot of box fights against players that are better than you. Now that's all she wrote for this video. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, use code JivanTV in the item shop, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.